Good morning, friends. This is a series of lecture for TYPC Analytical Chemistry student, semester 5 2019 pattern, and we are going to deal with the chapter number 3, thermal methods of analysis. Now here we are going to study these two plots of the thermogram, or you can say TG curve of pyrolysis. First is calcium oxalate monohydrate, while second is copper sulfate pentahydrate. Now we are going to study these two curves or TG curves. Now let us start. The TG pyrolysis curve for calcium oxalate monohydrate gives three-step weight loss pattern. Now here calcium oxalate monohydrate gives the three slopes in this manner for in thermogram or in TG pyrolysis curve. Thermogram of calcium oxalate monohydrate shows the first step at 100 degrees centigrade to 250 degrees centigrade due to loss of water molecules to form anhydrous calcium oxalate. So here anhydrous calcium oxalate is formed in the first step at a temperature of 100 degrees centigrade to 250 degrees centigrade, and here loss of water molecule takes place. That means the monohydrate molecule or monohydrate, that is one single water molecule that lived out from the calcium oxalate, and the remainder part is calcium oxalate only. The second step weight loss pattern is observed at 400 degrees centigrade to 500 degrees centigrade due to the loss of carbon monoxide from calcium oxalate. Now here in the calcium oxalate is a combination of, there is a one entity carbon monoxide remained in calcium oxalate, and at temperature of 400 degrees centigrade to 500 degrees centigrade the carbon monoxide molecule lived out or lost away from calcium oxalate molecule. In the third step, the last step, the third step weight loss pattern is observed at 650 degrees centigrade to 800 degrees centigrade. So at a high temperature, what happens? Let us see. Due to loss of carbon monoxide gas to form a calcium oxalate as a residue in the form of sample holder. Now here previously in the second step there is a formation of calcium carbonate from the calcium oxalate takes place, while in the third step there is an evolution of carbon dioxide gas takes place, and calcium carbonate is converted into calcium oxide at a temperature of 650 degrees centigrade to 800 degrees centigrade. So this is all about the calcium oxalate monohydrate TG curve or thermogram. Now here copper sulfate pentahydrate. The second example of TGA curve or TG pyrolysis curve or thermogram of copper sulfate pentahydrate. So copper sulfate is always observed in the pentahydrate form. Now 5 water molecules are associated with the copper sulfate, which gives the blue color to the copper sulfate. Now the TG pyrolysis curve for copper sulfate pentahydrate gives 4-step weight loss pattern. Now there is a first step, this is the second step, this is the third step, and the last one is fourth step. So copper sulfate pentahydrate gives a 4-step graph of thermogram. The thermogram shows the first step at 100 degrees centigrade to 180 degrees centigrade due to the loss of water molecule, 2 water molecules to form a copper sulfate trihydrate. So copper sulfate pentahydrate is converted into copper sulfate trihydrate at a temperature of 100 degrees centigrade to 180 degrees centigrade. This is the first step. Now in the second step weight loss pattern is observed at 250 degrees centigrade to 275 degrees centigrade, where loss of 2 water molecule takes place from the copper sulfate trihydrate to convert it into copper sulfate monohydrate. So there is a formation of copper sulfate monohydrate at a temperature of 250 degrees centigrade to 275 degrees centigrade takes place. Now in the third step, at a temperature of 300 degrees centigrade to 325 degrees centigrade, what happens takes place? So let us see. In the third step, weight loss pattern is observed at 300 degrees centigrade to 325 degrees centigrade due to the loss of 1 water molecule to form a copper sulfate only. So copper sulfate monohydrate is converted into copper sulfate at a temperature of 300 degrees centigrade to 325 degrees centigrade, where the loss of 1 water molecule takes place. Now here the fourth step weight loss pattern is observed at 698 degrees centigrade to 900 degrees centigrade. Now in the last step means what? It is a fourth step where at a temperature of 698 degrees centigrade to 900 degrees centigrade, there's a loss of sulfur dioxide takes place. So sulfur dioxide SO2 molecule will be left out from the copper oxide. So naturally there is a remainder part is copper oxide. So that is a copper oxide is formed at a temperature of 698 degrees centigrade to 900 degrees centigrade. So this is a typical TG curve for the we can say analysis for the copper sulfate pentahydrate, where the first step is a copper sulfate pentahydrate is converted into copper sulfate trihydrate. Copper sulfate trihydrate is converted into copper sulfate monohydrate. Copper sulfate monohydrate is converted into copper sulfate only, and the copper sulfate is converted into copper oxide with evolution or liberation of water molecules and sulfur dioxide respectively. So these are the all four steps is associated with the copper sulfate pentahydrate TG curve or thermogram. And naturally the remainder part is copper oxide as a residue in the sample holder. So this is all about this calcium oxalate monohydrate and copper sulfate pentahydrate TG curve analysis and their information. With this content, I conclude this lecture. Thank you very much for your patience listening.